Hello, everybody. This is Unicornalicious, and today I wanted to talk to you about the comic book series Generation X. It has two series. It has Series One, which started in 1994 by Scott Lobdell and Chris Bachalo, and we have Series Two, who was started by Christina Stain and Amilcar Pina. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. So the first thing you got to know about this is I love Generation X Series One, and I was really excited to know that they were going to make a series two, and I couldn't wait. I was really excited, and I saw an interview that they did with Christina Stain on the comic book, and as I read this, I came up to the part where she talks about one of the characters that she's putting in the comic book, and the interview really threw me off, and I kind of lost a little interest. And let me go ahead and read the part of the article that I'm talking about, which I also posted on the screen for you. It says, another standout for me was Eye Boy. Dude has an eye on his tongue. How's anyone going to want to make out with that? And while his heightened level of perception gives him insight into his cisgender heteronormative white privilege, it doesn't really give him the ability to run faster when a sentinel is trying to stomp him dead. Now, there's three words there that have no business in comic books at all whatsoever: cisgender, heteronormative, and white privilege. Yeah, white privilege is two words, but what I meant was three phrases. Because, come on, this is a comic book. All this is giving me is this comic book is going to be full of, you know, it's just going to be full of propaganda for this whole, like, Tumblr baby stuff. What are they called? Social warriors. Yeah, I mean, if this comic book is gonna pander to the whole, oh, I should feel bad because I'm a cisgender guy, and I have male privilege. I'm not white, so yeah, I don't have white privilege. Although I'm light skinned Hispanic, and a lot of people do give me that bullshit about being light skinned privilege. So fuck that. I mean, yeah. So right off the top, this interview just really threw me off. I don't know what to say from that. Now, right off the top, don't get me wrong, Jubilee's one of my top 10 Marvel characters. But right off the top, the thing that pissed me off is, why is she carrying her baby in almost what is it, all comic book, uh what is it, volume 1, volume 2? Why is she holding her baby nonstop? You live at a school. Like, I'm pretty sure you could pay somebody to take care of your kid. You literally have a school full of teenagers, and it's a school. I'm pretty sure there's like grown mutants in there. I mean, isn't the whole population of mutant kind supposed to be at this school because the numbers are low? Like, I'm pretty sure you could find a babysitter. I mean, you don't have to take your baby into battle, into class. That's unprofessional as hell. Like, they made her really sloppy in here, and I don't like that right off the top. Now, the whole idea of Generation X back in 1994 was that the next generation needed preparation for their life, whether they chose to become X-Men or just generally learn to use their abilities so they don't get found out while they're out in the real world. So, the idea of the second one is basically, of Series 2, is that these are the misfits, the ones who are not going to become X-Men, so they need to prepare themselves to live in the real world. And they're told that from the very beginning, like, you're not going to be X-Men, which sucks balls because what's the point of being a mutant if you aren't going to be an X-Men? And lots of these kids, their powers do sound kind of weird, but in recon missions and stuff like that, they could be very useful. Like Bling, for example. By the way, in issue 2, they have this like little thing where she's running and Chamber sees her and he's like, "Oh, you remind me of someone," which is like a play off on the whole, what is it, Husk, Paige Guthrie. Yeah, because she wanted to try super hard to be an X Man, but yeah, kudos, you read the first comic, good for you. But yeah, that alone, like, that sucks, being told you're not going to be an X-Man. So what's the point of you being at the school? I mean, her powers are literally her skin is diamond, and she can projectile diamond shards from her body or for her hands, something like that. So that alone, that's not a bad power to have. I mean, it gives her durability. I mean, come on, that's a good power to have out there. I mean, even Generation X Series One, they had penance. Penance was diamond hard, and she didn't throw projectile diamonds from her, but she was sharp, and it was a good. She was a good character, so I don't understand why they would tell her, "Oh, you're not going to be an X Man." That just sucks balls. Another thing, in issue one of series two, you have the Purifiers attacking the school. It's literally like I think it's 11 guys, and they're attacking the school. Now the school is literally like I said before. Every mutant is at this school. The You have two teams of X Men, gold and blue. You have what is it? The point is, you have all these mutants here, and 11 humans with guns break in, and it's a big deal, and it's hard to take them down. Quentin takes them down, and they're all mad at him because he goes a little too far. But the fact is, you had Chamber, you had Grey Mulkin, you had Kitty Pryde was there, Jubilee, who's a vampire. You had all these people there, and they literally had the hardest time taking them down. A school full of mutants. You had the Cuckoos, the leftover Cuckoos there, the White Queen clones. Yet they had the hardest trouble taking them down, and that doesn't work. That kind of storyline doesn't work here because you have a school full of mutants, like literally full of mutants. If this was Generation X Series 1, it would have worked because they literally had a handful of students and two teachers. Like, I get it, a handful of students. But here you literally had the X Mansion with the X-Men. That that was really bad. I didn't understand that at all. Talking about bad storylines, literally Jubilee hasn't done anything so far. And you have her sitting there complaining about how she's so tired from teaching, from raising a kid, that she can't even watch her own favorite TV show, which, big shocker, it's RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, okay, like, that's weird. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love that show too, but it's still fucking weird. Like, come on. You haven't even taught the kids anything. You haven't put your baby down long enough for you to do anything. Another thing I'll give them is they brought back M Plate. M Plate is a fusion between M and her brother M Plate. But the thing about this is they kind of got it really wrong. I know the M got possessed by M Plate in another comic, but the thing you got to know is M Plate and M fused. He didn't become some mist where he took control of her. They literally fused to make a whole new entity. So this whole thing about her talking to her brother, that was weird because it made no sense. Because like I said, they fused to make a whole new entity. Not he becomes a mist, she snorts it, and he takes control of her. That was weird. And another thing, his powers, they don't work the way they did it in series 2. He doesn't like absorb your powers and then all of a sudden he becomes your powers. He basically, what he does is he absorbs the powers and then he rechannels the energy. So the whole him becoming diamond after feeding on bling, that was weird. That didn't make no sense to me. The reason Implate looks like that is because he was feeding on penance for a long time. So after feeding on someone for a long time, he takes on the characteristics. That's why his hair is kind of like penance, and his hands are kind of like claw looking because he fed on her for many years. So that made no sense. The whole M plate feeding on bling, and then all of a sudden I keep saying him, but it's actually, like I said, it's a whole new entity, so it doesn't make sense. That was weird. They really should have fact checked that one. While I'm on that note about M Plate, the way that Jubilee acts about wanting to kick M Plate's butt because they're feeding on the students, like I get it, you're concerned about your students, but another thing is it's weird because Jubilee shows no concern at all whatsoever for her ex teammates. I mean, back in Generation X Series 1 in issue 48, M had a fight with it was a training session where Jubilee and M were training, and they literally got into like an actual fight where Jubilee's like, "Why are you so mean to me?" And M gives her this story about how the what is it, the you know that story about a scorpion who rides I think it's a fox or something over a river, and the fox is like, "You're gonna sting me," and the scorpion's like, "No, I won't, because I'll drown too." But then the scorpion does end up stinging him, and the fox is like, "Why?" And the scorpion's like, "Well, it's in my nature." M basically says like, "Hey, I'm a bitch because it's in my nature to be a bitch," and it's understandable. It's understandable because I'd be a bitch too if my mutation was to be perfect. I mean, the girl is super smart, super strong, can fly, intelligent, psychic. I mean, this girl is literally on a level of her own. Her mind must be so complex and everything. Like she sees things different than everybody else. So you can only think this girl would have a hard time connecting to anybody. So of course you're gonna be a bitch because you must feel lonely. But anyways, but in issue 70 of series 1, you also see them bonding over the fact that they both loved Sink Everett, and they lost him. He died, and they bond over that because they both lost somebody they cared about. And that goes to show, at some level they care about each other. They have mutual respect. And that's what series 2 totally loses, because all she cares about is, "Oh, I'm gonna kick her butt." Like they show like such anger. And yes, Jubilee's annoyed at M, but like I said, they have mutual respect. If you read Generation X Series 1, you see that. And I think they missed that on Series 2, and that was just awful because you're pretty much neglecting everything that happened up until that point. Something that I'm not 100% sure about was Husk, Paige Guthrie. She came back to do a cameo where I guess she's gonna help fight M Plate. Now, the way they drew her in series 2, she has like crackly skin, like where it's like flaky. I don't know what's wrong with that. What happened there? Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that she went through some things where like her mutation caused her some mental anguish, where I guess after husking so much, she became like mentally unstable, and which is understandable because if you're constantly if you're constantly changing your form, it has to have some kind of strain on your mental abilities, or your mind in general, because your mind has to cope with the fact that your body's constantly changing. It would explain why Morph from Age of Apocalypse is the way he is, because he's got to be a little batshit crazy. I mean, and then I believe Mystique touched on this before too, that it was kind of hard to like get a hold of her mentally or whatever, because like her mind is constantly changing as well, so she adapts to it. So I get that she had a mental breakdown from using her powers, but what does that got to do with her skin looking like that? I mean, Jesus Christ, what did they do to her? That just they just disfigured her. Like her skin looks like, what's up with that? Look at that. And finally, the last thing that just turned me off completely from this series, they made Jubilee and Chamber love interests. Yeah, think about that. If you go back to Generation X Series 1, Issue 1, in the back of the comic, it gives you like a brief description on the characters and a little backstory kind of. They literally say Chamber is 18. They say Chamber is 18 and Jubilee is 13. I'm sorry, 13 and a half. That's gross. I know there's age differences in relationships sometimes when they're already adults and stuff like that, but you literally knew this kid when this kid was 13, and you kind of like grew up with this kid, so you should always see this kid as kind of like you're a little kid kind of thing. I mean, to pair them off, like you knew her when she was 13. Yeah, imagine that. That's gross. That's really gross. Not to mention the whole fact that when Paige comes back and she's talking to them, and Jubilee gave no shits. She was like, "Yeah, oh my god, I know it's weird, but I totally like him, and he likes me. He's good with my kid, and blah blah blah." And you don't know if Paige is still interested, or I mean, God knows, like the backstory on them is on and off, on and off, all over the place. But yeah, that was the weird thing for me. I couldn't get past that. If you're still watching up until this point, you pretty much have noticed that this wasn't really a review. I guess this was more of a what really annoyed me from Generation X Series 2. I really felt that the portrayal of this series was done so bad. I mean, it's up till issue 10, but they did the whole renumbering thing, so it's issue 85, which I wouldn't have done because I wouldn't include this into the actual series. This is just actually really bad. If it would have been like a school of their own kind of thing, like Series 1, maybe it would have worked. But the whole idea that they're in a mansion with the X-Men and all these other people, I mean, it didn't work for me. It honestly, Jubilee's, they did her so unprepared, which um, wasn't she a social worker for depowered mutants when the whole No More Mutant series thing happened. So she has some, she actually has potential to be a good teacher, per se, and all this stuff. But the way they just did her in this series, they did her childish. They did her so unprepared. The whole idea that this series is for the misfit mutants who are never going to be X-Men. Nature Girl is so awkward. Like, I get it, you talk to animals and plants, so it's weird for you. For like, she has a hate for humans because they trample over nature. Like, Beast Boy from DC Comics turns into animals, so he's vegetarian, which is weird in itself because he turns into animals who eat other animals. So I don't get it. Like, but whatever. But what's her excuse? Like, you talk to nature and all this stuff. Like, I get it. You could have an insight and stuff, but not be like this terrible. Like, oh, screw all humans. You guys destroy nature. Like that was weird. Just in general, series two. From what I understand, I guess it got canceled. So I don't know how many more issues it has before it finally finishes. But I just think that Christina Stain was not ready for this series. I don't think she did enough fact checking or picked up more than the first issue of the first series. I mean, I, it's a big disappointment. I was really looking forward to this, and now I'm just really disappointed, and I don't know. Hopefully, if it gets picked up again, I mean, here's hoping they have better planning for everything, and if they want to bring back old characters, I hope they do it right without disrespecting the whole series and a whole, not just like for that series two or whatever series it falls on. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this.